Hi friends, Steve here in Beverly Hills at Ringos Starr's Peace and Love statue. I think it's been 9 months to a year since I've been back here to Beverly Hills, and this statue wasn't here then. So I really wanted to come back to see it in person. I've seen a couple of pictures. This is really cool, isn't it? Well, actually it was here, but I just didn't know it at the time, and I didn't see it, even though I was just a few yards away on the other side of Cannon Drive, filming at the Beverly Hills welcome sign. On the other side of Santa Monica Boulevard is Beverly Hills City Hall. Once you know it's here on the corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and Cannon Drive, it's easy to find, and there's also lots of free parking, which makes it easy to visit. This is a short trip today, but one of my favorites. Like pretty much every other baby boomer on the planet, the Beatles helped define my childhood. Growing up in the 1960s, I was a part of Beatlemania like everybody else at the time. I let my hair grow long like theirs, and I even wore Beatle boots. So visiting Ringos Starr's sculpture today is a real memory lane trip for me, in every sense of the word. A longtime resident of Beverly Hills, Ringo donated the polished steel sculpture to the city, and Beverly Gardens Park is now its permanent home. The sculpture was unveiled on November 1st, 2019, and the first time I saw a photo of the sculpture, I wondered why they put the hedge right behind it. It turns out that Ringo didn't want people photographing it from behind because apparently the gesture from the backside is considered rude in the UK. It's hard to believe that Ringo turned 80 years old this year on July 7th, 2020. And it's even harder to believe that John Lennon was murdered 40 years ago this year. He was 40 years old when he was killed, and it's been 40 years since his death, and he would have been 80 years old this October 9th, 2020. He died December 8th, 1980 in New York City, and his cremated remains were scattered in Central Park. Do you remember where you were when you heard that John Lennon had died? I sure do. I remember it like it was just yesterday. I was living in West Hollywood at the time, just off of Santa Monica Boulevard here, a couple of miles from this park where this statue now resides. I was working in downtown Los Angeles at the front desk at the recently opened Bonaventure Hotel, and driving home after work to my apartment in West Hollywood, my drive took me right past Capitol Records here, and his death was announced on my car radio while I was driving past this location where I'm standing today. And just the night before, I had dreamed that one of the Beatles had died and woke up feeling very depressed about it. So when I heard the news on the radio the next day, not only was I sad, but really shocked. Being here today also reminds me of my one and only trip to London back in 1990, where as soon as I arrived, I checked into my hotel at Piccadilly Circus, I dropped off my luggage, and then I took the subway or the tube to Abbey Road Studios. Of course, I had to walk across the famous crosswalk, and since I was alone on this trip and iPhones hadn't yet been invented, and we didn't do selfies back then, all I have are my memories of that day 30 years ago. I don't have a selfie of that moment in time, but sometimes memories are better than photos, and I can honestly say that that's one day and one special memory that I'll never forget. The Beatles each have a star here on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on Vine Street right in front of the Capitol Records building. So if you happen to be in Hollywood or Beverly Hills this December 8th, these are two spots you might want to visit to remember John Lennon and George Harrison, who are no longer with us, and also to thank John, Paul, George, and Ringo for helping to make our childhoods so much fun. And feel free to share your Beatles memories with us in the comments section. And just a heads up, in case you do decide to visit their stars here, finding free street parking in downtown Hollywood can be very difficult. So expect to pay for parking here, either on the streets or in lots, unless you can find a free spot in the surrounding residential neighborhoods and don't mind walking. Well, I guess that's a wrap. So until our next trip down memory lane together, happy travels, everyone.